Motley or Shanahan, thank you very much. Well, we've been covering a fair amount of fintech recently on the show, but how is Australia going in medtech, biotech and indeed pharma? Well, it's supposed to be one of the crucial sectors that will help create jobs. Traditionally, we've not been that hot at commercialising our research, though. So 2 years on from Malcolm Turnbull's innovation statement, how are we going? I asked Sue MacLeman, CEO of MTPConnect, which was formed as part of the government's $250 million Industry Growth Centres initiative to help grow the sector. Sue MacLeman, it's just great to have you up here in Sydney. Now, we are crawling as a nation up the Innovation Index. I think we've gone from 116 to 73 out of 142 in the last 3 or 4 years. Is that good enough?
Well, look, I don't think it is good enough, but I think there are different metrics for different sectors. And in fact, there are some metrics that suggest that we're actually a little bit better than that.
Right.
So if you look at Scientific America, for example, they do an innovation index, and for biotechnology, we're number 5 and have been in that place, in that top 5 for the last 3 or 4 years.
So where are, because you're talking about medtech, biotech, where are the hubs? We hear, and I talk to a lot of people from fintech hubs, where are the medtech hubs and the biotech hubs?
So we've got a really vibrant ecosystem, and there is so much happening out there, and often we actually can't locate them all that easily, but we have medical devices. They're in hubs.
Yeah.
They naturally form because you need all of those skills and expertise and infrastructure. So we have a fantastic medical devices design hub at Flinders University at Tonsley. That's the old Mitsubishi car plant that now is actually doing medical devices.
So that is a real story, is it, that skills have been able to move out of, you know, auto engineering, mining, perhaps engineering, into medical devices?
Yeah, so Tonsley Flinders is a great success story.
Yeah.
You know, moving from the Mitsubishi car factory, all those people that were doing robotics and special surfaces are now doing that for medtech, and that's quite exciting.
Elsewhere?
Yes, we have significant hubs. If I just talk about my hometown a little bit, around the Parkville precinct, around the Monash precinct as well, quite a lot of infrastructure there in medical devices, biotechnology and also pharmaceuticals. Here in Sydney we've got significant hubs with Cicada Innovation, and we've got hubs obviously up now around Macquarie University. We've got a lot of the pharmaceutical companies and a lot of the medical device companies as well. Well,
you mentioned those 2 big sectors, if you will, but globally, presumably this is one great big competition for the investment dollar. What's attractive about Australia?
So Australia's very fortunate in that we've got world-class infrastructure and very, very good research. Where we fall down is we don't spend enough time and money doing that knowledge transfer and that knowledge commercialisation. But we're getting better, and I'm actually quite hopeful. And we're actually seeing quite a lot of more investment coming into the sector, where we've got the Biomedical Translation Fund, $500 million is going into the sector to really drive innovation.
And do we have any good success stories we can point to?
I think there's some terrific success stories, and one that we've had in just the last couple of days is Star Pharma.
That's Jackie Fairley, yeah.
And Jackie's terrific, and they've had some really positive clinical trial data, which will now mean that they take that product and apply to the FDA for market approval so that they can actually help patients.
Right, well, hopefully that'll be a lesson for any shorters there. Now, more broadly, one of the things that I understand that attracts people in is Australia's ability to do clinical trials. Is that right?
Yeah, we punch well above our weight when it comes to clinical trials. We're number 10th globally, and in fact, we've been growing faster than some of the major markets like the US and the UK.
Why is that so important to be able to encourage clinical trials to be done here?
Well, one, it gives us early access to medicine, it gives us experience with new technology, and clearly that benefits patients, but it also benefits the health infrastructure. I mean, we have a vibrant ecosystem for clinical trials. About 1,360 clinical trials were commenced in 2015. About $1.1 billion in investment goes into those clinical trials, and about 7,000 jobs, and they're often tertiary qualified jobs.
And the challenges for what can we do better? Better process in hospitals?
So we have very good infrastructure, very good key opinion leaders, good regulatory frameworks that allow us to get clinical trials up and running quickly.
Yes.
Where we fall down, and I guess this is a criticism more broadly globally, because this is a challenge for everyone, is making sure that we're recruiting those patients in a really time-effective way, and making sure that we're absolutely coordinating all of the paperwork work and
And
start-up
does having
processes.
all sorts of different states doing all sorts of different things...
There is a lot more harmonisation than there used to be. We now have the jurisdictional working group, which is where the federal government and the state governments and other stakeholders all work together. And in fact, we actually now have much more seamless processes than we had many years ago.
And does what about the A dollar? Has that, the high A dollar, has that affected things?
We're still very attractive. So things like the R&D tax incentive, the fact that we have, you know, good world-class infrastructure, key opinion leaders, very, very good phase 1 units means that we're attracting many of those complex studies where we punch above our weight in areas like oncology, in neurology, neuroscience.
And what about the venture capital market? Because that's always been that sort of middle level of finance, which is hard to get, isn't it, in Australia?
Look, it is hard to get. I think we've now got some success stories, and I think those success stories will drive additional interest. We're seeing already that a number of the pharmaceutical companies have got their scouts down here in Australia looking for those new technologies. We've seen the Biomedical Translation Fund starting to invest in some of those companies. We've had the money start to flow from the Medical Research Future Fund, and all of that bodes well very well for the sector.
So you've got some big goals, I see. So, you know, an increase in the contribution, economic contribution of this sort of space by $3.2 billion a year, driving an estimated 28,000 new jobs. Over what time? And do you think you'll be successful?
That's over a 10-year period, and I think that's if everything comes together and aligns. And it's not just our goal, it's really a sector goal, and it's going to be a number of things will play into that success.
Anything you're worried about from government point of view?
I think we work with all government, both state and federal, and opposition as well as obviously the current leadership. From our perspective, we want stable, good policy that's globally relevant, that allows us to be competitive on the international stage, because this is an international game.
And I suppose a big watershed is the Office of Innovation and Science. This is Bill Ferris and this is Alan Finkel together, isn't it? Now they're coming out with something in October?
They are.
What are you expecting?
So, I mean, the Office of Innovation and Science Australia, which came out of the National Innovation Science agenda, is really been tasked with looking at the whole innovation ecosystem and what's working and what's not. And they've released in February their audit of what the state of the nation is, and in October they'll be really talking about some of the strategies to drive innovation in Australia for the future.
So you reckon it'll get back up the agenda, because there's a few things pushing it down, aren't there?
There are, although I think we have a Prime Minister who does believe in innovation. We have a Chief Scientist in Alan Finkel who's passionate about this.
Yeah.
We've got Bill Ferris in his role as head of the OISA, but also involved with the Biomedical Translation Fund. So there's a lot of things aligning that actually make it a really vibrant and dynamic time for the sector.
And big multinational companies are looking to invest big time in Australia. I mean, looking at the PBS and things like that.
Look, they absolutely are. We're seeing huge engagement from the pharmaceutical industry, and we've seen the recent announcement with AstraZeneca, $100 million coming here to Sydney, which is a fantastic opportunity, I think, for Australia to really be showcasing some of their core expertise and being able to translate that and take that to the global market.
Sue MacLeman, thank you very much. You're a great catalyst.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And that's all for the show tonight. Tomorrow night, full coverage and analysis of the CBA result, including our one-on-one interview with CEO Ian Narev. Thanks for your company.